Just a note before we start. Our show talks about touchy subjects that may be difficult for some of our listeners. Take care of yourself. If you feel you need to seek help, see the links at the end of our show notes for resources.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Touchy Subjects Podcast, the podcast that aims to break the silence that tends to come with conversations around domestic and sexual violence. I'm Sean.
And I'm Amanda.
And today we are joined by special guest Fanny Tristan today. So thank you for joining us today, Fanny.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're so excited to have you on the podcast today, especially to talk about a subject that we haven't actually really talked about before on the podcast, and it's kind of around how society tends to center romance in women's lives. So before we jump into that conversation, though, to show people just how much of an expert you are at having this conversation, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, my name is Fanny Tristan. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I am the founder of a coaching platform called Her Soul Supply. And that is where I teach single women how to break down some of the systems that have them feeling stuck in their singlehood journey and teach them a lot of the tools that bring them closer to having healthier connections in their lives and living a life that is very fulfilling and not particularly centered around romantic partnership.
I can't wait to have this conversation because, I mean, obviously, growing up as a girl in our society, like you are taught so many things. Every fairy tale, every children's book, everything that you've ever seen in your entire life is like, oh, you need to find your Prince Charming. You need to find your other part, and that is how you have a complete life. Like, and that's where the stories all end, is when, oh, they got married. So I cannot wait to have this conversation because I have always felt like, okay, there's got to be more than this, right? So I love this. I can't wait.
Yeah, and it's especially kind of interesting bringing up in media and stuff too. Listeners know that I love talking about and discussing media, but it seems like everything that we always tend to see relating to women, even if those women are our main characters, is how do I get the husband? How do I find a partner for myself? I just think of like 23 dresses or 27 dresses, where it's like her
hmm
whole objective in that film is just, I'm tired of being the bridesmaid. I want to be the bride, which for some people, that is what they want, right? They want to have that wedding. They want to find their partner. But that shouldn't be like their only thing and only goal in life. And for women, it kind of feels like that's really what we push women towards in society is this is your objective and your goal is to just get married or find a partner.
And to think anything outside of it is like that's always the weird character, right? Like that's the one that's too opinionated. That's the one that's too brash. And they're always, a little bit of like a side character usually. And even if you do get into like something where it's like, oh, this one character, she's not out for that. In the end of it, she still finds someone, and it always comes back to who is the partner in your life that makes you feel fulfilled. Me, I'm the character that makes me feel fulfilled.
Uh, so,
Exactly.
yeah. So
Oh,
Fanny,
yeah. I mean, have y'all ever heard of the Bechdel test?
yes,
It,
yes.
yeah, right. That I think it's gotten better over the years. I think when the Bechdel test was invented by a woman, I think her last name was Bechdel, and she had assessed all of the films, like what films passed this test, which she named after herself. That the only rule to pass the test was that it had to have at least two women in a scene
Mhm.
talking about something other than a man. That was the only requirement to pass this test, and very few films do. I think now it's at about
Uh,
50% of films out there,
y-
popular films out there, do pass it, which is still not enough. It's better than
yeah.
before when it came out, but it's definitely something that you can tell is part of the fabric of media and entertainment.
Well, it's like even the original Avenger, like the first Avengers movie does not pass the Bechdel test. Or
Yep, yep.
the newest Snow White movie, when your main character is a woman and the main antagonist is a woman, that film fails the Bechdel test. So yeah, we still have a bit of work to go when it comes to representation and how we tend to represent women in media. Um, but Fanny, really looking at especially the work that you do with Her Soul Supply, um, how do those conversations with women often come to help them kind of understand like society is kind of pushing women in this direction, or society really is trying to say being single is kind of maybe okay, but like really what you should want is to have that marriage or that partner.
Oh, yeah. So I think that's why so much of the work at Her Soul Supply is grounded in education because my background as a therapist, but specifically a clinical social worker, I feel like I've always known about systems, that people are parts of systems, right? That it's not just about the mind and body connection, is that we as humans are part of systems. And a lot of the ways that we behave, how we feel about the world, ourselves, has a lot to do with our place in that system or our role or our function in that system. And so I start off a lot of my work with women talking to them about what the patriarchy is, right? And just how much of a part of a lot of communities the patriarchy is very, very strong in, even today, even though it is kind of archaic ideology. It's something that is very baked into our laws, our social structures, and really challenging women to think about themselves outside of that system. What if the expectations of the roles that women play in patriarchy that support patriarchy, what if they were not part of the equation? What would your life look like? What would you want? What would you desire? And I think that that's where it really starts, in this curiosity of what if you were in a place that wasn't actually told that you needed to be in, right? Like, what if you actually got to choose where you wanted to go versus being told where you needed to be?
That whole idea is so foreign to so many people, right? It's it's not even something that we think about consciously because it, like you said, it's so ingrained into just how the systems have worked for the last thousands of years that we don't even take a second glance at women who prioritize their relationships, their family, their children over even their own health and well-being. That's just what women do, right? And how can we help push past that to a point where, sure, if that's what you want is to be a wife and a mother and center yourself around your family, then that's a perfectly fine choice for you. But it is a choice. And too many people don't understand that there are other choices to make, right? So how can we help that?
Yeah. And oh, go ahead, Fanny.
Yeah, no, I was going to just bring it back to the educational piece, right?
Mhm.
There is that um, if you have someone that is curious to learn why, right? Why am I not being chosen? Why am I still single? Am I doing something wrong, right? If they're actually willing to explore more, I think that they find that the world is actually a lot bigger than they think it is, right? And I think that that's where the fire starts to really glow and say, oh, wait, like I thought the answer was just in this box, but actually I walked into this room and there were plenty of directions I can go. There are plenty of boxes, right, that I can open and explore and try and see what I like. And that it's not this dead end, that it's actually, you're finally opening up an opportunity that has plenty of options.
And I enjoy like having those discussions in this space, especially around like the system of patriarchy. because that system was very intentionally put in place, especially specifically by men, obviously, um, to kind of dictate and control everything. And it's why I point out is like patriarchy doesn't, it kind of harms everyone. Because even in this like conversation, looking at it from my perspective as a guy, if women feel like their only like their goal or their objective is to find that partner, right? Like that's how they themselves feel like that's how they're going to be happy. Well, what happens if they're with a partner and they're not happy then? So now they're in a relationship with somebody and they're not happy in that relationship. Or on the flip side of it, it allows mediocre men to just end up with partners and not have to really do much because this patriarchal system tells women you should want to be with a partner. So as a man, I don't got to change anything because the system's already in place to have women eventually decide, well, if my goal is to be with a guy, to find my partner, to find a husband, eventually they will settle. And that's not good.
Yeah, so this just makes me feel like we have to talk about like this male loneliness epidemic that's going on in the world where all of these alpha men are saying that like now they can't find a woman because what? Because women became a little bit more aware of the fact that they don't have to settle, right? And you've got like the movements that have happened. Oh my gosh, I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called. The movement in Korea where women
The
were finally,
celibacy movement. Hmm.
yeah, so it was just literally women going, "Oh, hey, we don't have to spend our entire lives just trying to find a husband." And men lost their minds. Like they literally went crazy because all of a sudden women weren't just throwing themselves at them for just being a man, for just offering some sort of like sense of security or financial, you know, assistance to the family or whatever. And it really it makes me laugh. Like I want to sit back and laugh about it. I know it's not a laughing matter, but I want to laugh because like men who pride themselves on being so alpha, so dominant, so, head of the household type guys are all of a sudden realizing that that's not enough and they don't know what to do about it.
Oh yeah. Have y'all heard about this other movement that's been going on called some people call it the silver divorce or the gray divorce, where there's been
No.
a large number of women over 50 who are just getting divorces because, life expectancy is a lot longer now.
Yeah.
These are women that got married, they did the things, they got the kids, they did all of the things that a lot of women on the other side are told is where the grass is greener. And a lot of them are choosing to not grow old with their husbands because they don't actually see that as a value add in their lives anymore. And so they are choosing freedom by divorcing and saying, okay, I can actually do this on my own. I don't have to be dependent on you if I don't want to. I can find another community of people. And apparently there's a growing population of aging people that are doing so well on these dating apps because they are like really curious people. They like want to know about different kinds of people. They're kind of the most ideal folks to date online because they they don't have these like really rigid ideas of like who their partners should be. That's really, I actually just want to meet so many different people because I want to learn about myself and I want the world to be expansive again because I've been in this box with this man that I
Mhm.
know I don't want to grow old with,
Yeah.
essentially. And so it's almost just like a whole new chapter of your life.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and you look at so you've got people who, like you're saying in their 50s, 60s, whatever. So they were born into a world where their parents, their mothers specifically, didn't have that choice, right? Their mothers were kind of locked into those marriages, and you stayed because you didn't have another option. And we could get into a whole conversation about, why they didn't have the option financially, legally, independently, all those things. But that was the world they were born into. And so they saw that and they grew up in it. And they saw sometimes a loveless marriage was, what was happening, or an abusive marriage was what was happening. And that was just how it was. And so they entered relationships with those expectations because that's just how it was. And now they're finally seeing that it doesn't have to be that way. And so they're breaking free. And that's the most beautiful thing I think I've ever heard in my life. Like, I love that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too because you bring up these older people are the ones who are the most ideal really people for dating apps because thinking about it from that flip side of like someone who is younger, if it is a woman who fully believes like this is what I have to do next, like I have to find a partner because my clock is ticking essentially, right? It's like I have to find a partner because I have to have the two kids before I turn 35 when it's considered then a geriatric pregnancy. And if that's their objective and their goal, they're going to feel kind of rushed through this process and not being able to take that time to really sit with and think, well, what do I want from this? Do I want this partnership? Do I want to be single? Because if they don't even feel like that's an option to them, they're not going to take the time to think about what that could actually look like. So I find it really interesting that it's these older people who have like, yeah, we've done all this stuff. Like now I just want to meet people and like see what this is like because really that should be what dating is like for everyone. It's like you should want to meet new people to have those conversations. If you're extroverted, you should want to meet new people. Introverted people might be like, I want to meet people, but like at a distance and not as often. Um, but it should be fun. It should be engaging. You should feel good about doing it. You shouldn't feel pressured into having to go on these dates just because like this is what society has told you is next. So if we want women to be able to start feeling like they can take that time to say, hey, is this something that I really want? What systems do we kind of need to look at and start trying to impact to help women feel like they can make the choice to do something other than trying to find a partner, trying to center romance in their lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when we think about, all right, well, what do we look at instead, right, to feel empowered, right? Like, let's say we now know that the patriarchy is working against us, that it's what causes sexism, it's what causes cycles of abuse, it's what causes a lot of our really problematic understandings of power, right? I think the next step becomes really assessing yourself, right? Like the change happens within you, and then that grows into community and beyond. And so a lot of this is kind of internal audit, right? If you are someone that is full of cups, I talk about cups all the time, right? Like if you're someone that's full of cups, right? Like it may be that uh, an ex-partner was filling a specific cup, right? But draining all the other ones because it was a bottomless cup, right? And all of these other cups that make you you they're just dry and they need nourishment, right? And so, what are these creative parts of you that you've let go, right? What are the other connections that you had with people that maybe you stopped investing in when you were in your last relationship, or that you maybe let go of because you were feeling depressed or feeling like disconnected from people, right? Really thinking about what are the holistic ways in which we take care of ourselves, right? So this isn't just the exterior. This isn't go get a mani pedi or have a bubble bath and feel better. It's more about what are the stories that I tell myself? How do I talk to myself? How do I see myself in the world? Where do I see my value? Is it only in a place where I'm in service of other people? We have to undo that, right? And so a lot of it starts with a lot of that internal monologue, and that's going to then change the way that you see yourself in the world, your power in the world, and your influence. And that is the kind of confidence that you need to build more intimate connections with people, right? Because you know that you can walk into a space adding value instead of with your head down, hoping that someone will talk to you, or not knowing if you even belong in the room, right? So if we work on all of that internal stuff first, I think that you'll see how much doors open in terms of people who actually want to hang out with you and engage with you.
And, I think that's like such a great little segue there into you can still be a person who does want a romantic relationship, but let's make that romantic relationship based on real connections, not on the need to, check this box that says I'm married and I have a couple kids, right? And the only way you're going to get to the point of being able to make those connections and have those connections is if you do that work with yourself first. All of that self-reflection you're talking about, all of that confidence building you're talking about, finding out who you are and what you want, and then finding a person who can match or complement that, not changing yourself into what their ideas and their goals are, but find the person who actually clicks with you.
And I do like that you bring up I'm like, how are you kind of defining yourself? Like, what do you want? Or like, are you just like someone who says like, I work for others and like I help others and that's where I'm getting my value from? Because I feel like a lot of the systems that we have kind of been put in place really push that on both men and women, where men just feel like if they can get anything from someone else, like they have to be in service to them first or be able to provide them with something, like men being the providers, where women are often placed in that role of what can I do for other people instead of what can I do for myself. So when we're constantly in this space of like, well, how am I going to act in service to others? A lot of those things that people define themselves as, like, I'm a mother, I'm a father, I'm a husband or a wife, I'm a friend. But to you, when you're saying those things, does that mean I am a mother because I take care of someone else? Or is it defined as something different? Am I a friend because I show up for my friends when they need me? Or is it I'm a friend because I know I have these people that I can relate to and hang out with and we're good for each other? Because if even if you have all these different traits and ideas and you say what you are, does that boil back down to you're those things because you're in service to someone, or are you those things because this is who you are?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a really good way to put it, Sean, because yeah, is there this personal value to what it is that you're putting out in the world? And so what I mean by that is, yeah, kind of the mother example is a perfect one, right? Are you a great mom because you are a martyr to your children and make six different meals for them every day? And, because they're, particular about all these things and they're really the ones that are running the house, right? Or are you a great mom because you are emotionally available to your kids and you lead them by example and your kids know what um, a woman that's a boss looks like, right? Because she runs her household and she is a good collaborator on her Zoom calls at work, and she has great integrity and does everything so well. She really sees her profession as something that's respectable, and your kids look up to that, right? That's also a good mom, and that mom might not even make dinner, you know. But it's almost like thinking a little bit more critically about what are the values that we're trying to put on those that we love and the world, and that we can actually be um, the vessel of those values, right? Because we live them, right? And if we're able to live them, then we have more impact than we can ever imagine.
Yeah, and it can be hard for people to kind of like think about that because it's so ingrained that these are what these labels mean, right? Like using women as like using the mother as an example again, like a mom, like we've been told this is someone who's nurturing, caring, does the cooking and the cleaning, like that's what a mom means. But I love that you use like she might not even cook, like make the meals, because like that's my relationship with my partner. She does not cook and make the meals. I will be the one who does most of the cooking for our son and for us in general. But she is a great mom in so many other spaces that cooking is not the requirement for her to be a good mom. Knowing what he likes to eat and doesn't like to eat isn't the requirement for her, because she is going to be able to show our son this is what a woman who runs the house, this is what a woman who knows her worth looks like and behaves like. And that's going to be super important for him to be able to see, not only as a guy growing up, to be able to understand like this is women should be in equal partnership with men, not being subservient to them, but also understanding like this is what it looks like in a relationship. This is what it looks like for a woman to be her own person and not be reliant on or saying, well, I'm just a partner to someone else. She is her own person.
I think that a lot of women end up falling into that trap, right? Where it's, well, I'm going to be a mom now. So now my whole entire life, my whole entire identity has to go into being a mom to a child. And I think people lose themselves in that. Even if they're a little bit older when they have that child, even if they're young when they have that child, it doesn't matter. Like, we lose ourselves into this idea that society has placed into us of this is what a mother is. You live for your child. Well, yeah, but also I need to live for me. Like, if I'm not living for me, what kind of role is that? What kind of role model am I being? What kind of society am I setting up for my child if my only identity now at this point is to be your mother? And I think that's something that's super hard for people to identify with because, right, if you don't put yourself into I am 100% completely totally nothing but a mother, then people like are, oh, well, so you're a selfish mom. You're not a good mom. You're not, you decided to have a kid. You need to make your life completely about them. That's not what being a mother is. That's not what being a parent at all is. And it works the same for fathers too. Like we don't expect people to completely lose their sense of self in service to a child that they've had. Yes, you might have to for those first few months and things like that because I'm not a mom, but I'm, from what I hear, it's pretty intense and grueling, and that little thing needs a lot of attention. Uh,
So
but
much. So much.
But
but
it's
being
also a
able
village.
to grow
Hmm.
back out of that, right? Like
Hmm.
say, okay, I gave you everything you needed when you were at your most vulnerable. And now you're starting to grow and have your own independence. And I can grow and have a little bit of my own independence too.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's the key part, Amanda, that, I think I realized as I was coming into my motherhood journey. My daughter's turning 6 now, so she was born right before the pandemic began.
So,
And so we were just kind of this little isolated cocoon
yeah.
of a threesome, me, my husband, and my daughter. And I think I realized so much, especially coming out of the pandemic, how much I missed this identity of mine that was outside of motherhood, and how much I wanted to preserve that because that also fell under threat through this pandemic, right? People's relationships with everybody changed.
Yeah.
And I found it so surprising at the time, um, how easily women just like let go of that part of themselves. They will just let go of the friendships. They will let go of their own style, their own sense of like what they like, their hobbies, all because like my whole existence is about this. And I pretty much work because I need to get childcare. Right. And it's not this kind of pursuing of, no, like this is my child, we're a family, and we all have things that we want to do. And I think part of why it relates so much to patriarchy is because if you are a heterosexual woman and you decided to have a child with a man, is that man someone who has also an expansive understanding of what a wife and a mother is, of what a father is, right? Is he the kind of father that understands, like, okay, well, also I'm part of the team. It's not just I'm the breadwinner and I do the things that I want to further my career, and my wife has to figure out everything else. I think that that's a place where a lot of women find themselves in of, well, I can't convince my husband to cook. I can't convince him to, what they say, babysit the kids, which I find
Yeah.
so ridiculous, because how do you babysit your own child?
Right.
It's your child, right? You are responsible for them. And so I think, for a lot of women, they kind of fall into this role. And because it's so ingrained, right, that role is so laid out for them that it becomes a thing that they can take a lot of pride in, which they should, right? But is not the only part of that that can make them feel fulfilled, because at the end of the day, these kids are going to leave. Okay. They're going to go away. They're going to live their lives as we expect them to become independent humans. Then what? Then where are your friends? Then
Mhm.
where are those parts of yourself that have just kind of over time disappeared because you've identified yourself so heavily with your children? And at the end of the day, is it better that we all get to see this version of you, right? The kids, the friends, that your partner gets to see, the you that is fulfilled in all different ways, right? Because you will have a different relationship with everyone in your life, right? Not just your kids.
Yeah. So
I think
go ahead.
I think that that also plays a lot into how some people view relationships today, because their mothers did lose themselves in service of them. And so then that's what they saw, that's what they expected. And now they're moving out into this world where maybe some people are realizing they don't have to lose themselves in service to you. Maybe you do have to wash your own laundry, and nobody is going to, cater to your every whim and need. And we get this, well, women just aren't like they used to be. We don't have people like our moms anymore. No, you don't, because your mom completely lost herself in being your mother, and there are women out there now who are unwilling and should be unwilling to do that. So, yeah, it is a different world, and that's really scary to some people, right? It can be a lot easier to have something set out in front of you that says, this is how everything should be. This is how it should go. These are the rules you should follow. And sometimes, we fall into that because it's easier to just follow the rules that are already set in place. But that's not what's going to make us happy in the long run, right? Like, you got to forage out, and it's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be hard, but you're not going to really know yourself and know where you can be in this world unless you push those boundaries and put yourself into those uncomfortable situations.
Yeah. So this might be a dumb question, Fanny, but because we've talked about how there are other options for women than just feeling like I need to find a partner, I need to get married, I need to have kids. What are those other options? Because it's one thing to say there's other options, but what are they?
Well, I mean, I think it depends on what it is that you're looking for, but I think even one example could be just timeline, right? Because it is an oversimplification to say, like, oh, well, you don't have to have kids. Well, also, I think it's even more specific to say you don't have to have kids right now, right? I think of a time when I was living with my girlfriends in my early 20s, and I had a great 20s. And it was also a time of great awakening for me. And I remember that we were living very liberated, happy lives. We were at the beginnings of our careers. We had different odd jobs. We partied. We made friends. We did all sorts of stuff all over the streets of New York City. And then something happened when we turned 27. Like that was the age where all of a sudden we started getting really preoccupied with dating, or just the fact that we hadn't been partnered yet if we hadn't been in a relationship yet. And I really do think that's the magic number. I think 27 is the age where women really start to like worry about their choices and whether they're on the right path. Um, and especially in a place like New York, I know in different parts of the country or parts of the world, like women may be worrying even younger, because they might live in an environment where people married very young. Um, and I remember my mom had me at 27. So many of our moms had kids at 27, right? Or they were moms at 27. So I think there's this idea that, okay, you can do what you want, but once you're 27, like you really need to, there needs to be evidence of your incoming motherhood, or you're going to be off this, what I call the relationship escalator, right? Where it's you're dating someone, you're living with them, you get married, you have kids, and it's like the whole thing that we expect. And so even thinking about the idea that you are of a certain age and that you should be doing this by a certain age, that is also a different option, right? If you do want to be focusing more on career or building community or traveling, right? Or building the kind of life that allows you to kind of live as expansively as you want. You want to create the kind of career that lets you be in Europe for 4 months out of the year, right? That's going to take some work to get to. And yeah, you might not want to have to think about maternity, even childcare in that plan until after you get to do that, or you know what that's like, right? That's an option, right? Um, some women, they they want to kind of, or they need to break down what that relationship escalator is really like. I think that because of patriarchy, we are trained to say, okay, I want a baby. That means I need a partner, then we need to get married, and then we have the kid, right? And I think when we really break down all of those things, those are all very different decisions. Decision to date someone is different from the decision to marry someone, which is different from the decision of wanting children, as in parenting, versus wanting to carry a baby, pregnancy. Different decisions, right? All of these things are so different, and they don't have to happen in a specific, right? And I think we're like given a package of like you need to have all of these things in order for it to all feel right. And you don't. So many people have kids and maybe have a partner or a co-parent. They're like, we're not going to get married. And you know what? We're better off for that, right? Or I do want a child, but I don't want to carry the baby. Or, I pregnancy is not something that I really want for my body, right? And like, what does that mean? Right? Or some people that say, I really want a child because I know I want a parent, because I know I have all this love to give, and I don't want to wait for a man. I don't want to figure that out. And I'm going to be a single mother by choice because I'm not going to miss out on that experience just because this part of my life is lagging or isn't really happening in the exact timeline that I thought it would. Right. And so that's just one of many different options you can think of. And it's not this binary of I do or do not need to be in a relationship, or I do or do not need to be a mother. It's more about the how, and can you explore all of the ways how these things can happen for you, even if they are the things that you want.
I think that's such a great point because, like you were saying, you felt like you had to pick a package, right? Like in those early days, it was, am I going to be wife, mother, maybe have a job, or am I going to be a career woman, right? Like those were two very separate things. You couldn't have them both. And more and more people are realizing you can have them both. It's a mix and match package. Like I get to pick things I want from this one and I get to pick things I want from this one because like so many people that I know are choosing to have a baby at 40. Like which is something that was unheard of before. Like if you had a baby at 40, 20 years ago, it was like, "Oh, whoops. Like this is going to be rough." But so many people are choosing that now because one, yeah, our life expectancy is a whole lot longer. It was one thing to have a kid by 20 when you only live till 50. Like it's a completely different world medically now, right? We have a lot more options. People can adopt kids later if they don't want to have that baby themselves, if they feel like they've waited too long and they're outside the window of when their body would be able to handle it. Because I again haven't been pregnant, but that's got to take a toll on the body, right? Like you're growing a whole entire human being inside of you for 10 months and then you have to get it out. Like that's hard and that's not something that everybody's body can handle. So I don't want to carry the baby, but I do want to be a mom, right? So I can adopt or I can have a surrogate or I can whatever. I can take in other children in my life as an aunt, as a grandma figure, as a whatever. Because just because you have all that love to give doesn't mean you have to follow that traditional route of it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Life is a la carte. It's not one thing.
A la carte. Perfect. I love that.
Uh, So
I
Fanny, I
didn't
know we,
order a value meal.
yeah, just order a bunch of things off the value menu. That's all you gotta do. So Fanny, I know we are getting to the end of the episode today with you. So before we do a sign off here, is there anything else you would like to let our audience know?
So I just want everyone to know that, remember that the world is so much bigger than we think that it is, right? And so being able to stay curious is going to be our ways to finding those paths, especially when we feel lost. Um, and if you feel like that's something that is isolating or hard to do in solitude, to find that community. Personal Supply is a space in which we provide a lot of that education. We do in person gatherings around New York City. We curate a lot of our education, especially for women of color, because we talk about racism, we talk about sexism, we talk about these systems in a way that can feel really layered and isolating to women of color, right? And so, I think that there's just so much out there to learn. And so folks can explore that through, learning about her soul supplier that we're talking about there, or even finding your own community in your area that is going to be a little bit more aligned with the values that you want to pursue.
Awesome. And if they wanted to find you on social media and find out more about Her Soul Supply, where can they find you?
Yeah. And so I do have a newsletter that you can find on my website that you can sign up for at hersoulsupply.com. I also have some freebie guides there about building trust, building community, building confidence after breakups. I have a blog, and I'm pretty active on Instagram and TikTok, so you can follow me there at Her Soul Supply as well.
Awesome. And I'll make sure I have links to all of those in the show notes. So anybody who is looking to find Fanny and Her Soul Supply, you can find those down below in the show notes. So thank you so much for joining us today, Fanny. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
And thank you all for listening today. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Touchy Subs Pod to keep up to date when we have new episodes and other content coming out. Email us any questions, comments, or concerns to touchysubjectspodcast@gmail.com. And please rate and follow us on your favorite podcast listening app. It really does help the show out.
And in the meantime, don't be afraid to challenge, ask, and discuss when it comes to touchy subjects.